Dear viewer, we are privileged and honored to bring to you various recordings of devotees who have had first-hand experiences with Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, also known as Swami. What's so special about these recordings is that these come from New Zealand, which is a small land in the Pacific Ocean. In these recordings, you're about to hear and witness some of the miracles, some of the teachings, and many of the fond memories that people have been able to experience by being in close proximity to the avatar. One of the key people who has been able to bring many across on these various pilgrimages has been the author extraordinaire Mata Betty. Mata Betty was the author of over 5 books, mainly charting the spiritual quest that she undertook over the 1970s, 80s, 90s, and all the way up to 2004. She was a Catholic by religion. However, she also had a universal awareness of what it is to be a good human being. She had numerous encounters with Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba in those years, and from her own diary, she had over 50 pilgrimages to India, and during these pilgrimages, she also enjoyed the close proximity of Bhagwan through various contexts. It's a very nice afternoon here in Tom and Lyn's residence, and Om Sai Ram to you, Lyn.
Om Sai Ram.
It's a very nice and a rare privilege to be speaking to a person of your caliber. When I say that, I mean it, because you have been an illustrator, an artist, and a contributor to many of the good works by many devotees of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, especially, as I recall, Mata Betty's books.
Yes.
Also Professor Venkatraman's book. Peter Phipps.
Madeline
Gilman. And did I miss anyone?
There's a few more. Kantapala.
So it's a great opportunity for us to know of you, who has been involved with so many of these wonderful productions. But before that, Lyn, we would really like to know something about yourself, especially of your background and how you came to know of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba.
I was born in Niagara Falls, not in the falls, but beside the falls, otherwise it would have been very uncomfortable for my mother. My parents were very staunch Lutherans, and from very early on I attended Sunday school. I never missed it. And I had a very deep grounding in Christianity. It was my whole life. I had a picture of Jesus in my room, and when other girls had boyfriends and scratched their initials on their desk, F.E. loves, S.M., I would scratch Lyn Kriegler loves Jesus Christ. And I never missed Sunday school. I had a pin with all the perfect attendance, and we were asked to be able to quote any verse from the Bible. If our minister said, "What is John 3:16?" God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. So I was, from a very early age, very aware of spirituality, and not just Christianity. I was very interested in Buddhism. I bought a small Buddha for my room when I was 10 years old. To my parents' credit, they didn't mind that I started burning incense in front of this Buddha. I would go out in fields and make little altars and sit in front of them in complete bliss, and I had no idea why I was doing this. And I also made many drawings of gods and goddesses with 6 arms, and decorated them with old bits of costume jewelry that my father gave me. He was a very fine jeweler. And so one thing and another, I was drawn to some kind of other life. I loved school, and I made sure I did well in school. And then when I was 18 at university, I was studying art, fashion illustration. I happened to go into a bookstore that had a large display of books by Yogananda, Autobiography of a Yogi. I had never seen a book on Indian spirituality. I was raised in Virginia, a very conservative American state. We never saw books on India. In fact, India was just, you didn't even talk about India. It was a terrible place. No one would go there. And would get cholera. You know, that was the general thought amongst all the people I lived with. You went to Mexico, you went to Paris, you never went to India. But I read that book. In fact, I spent my whole week's allowance on buying a hardback copy of Yogananda. And from that moment on, all I could think of was, I want to look in your eyes to Yogananda, and I want to work for you. I was very disappointed to find out that he'd passed away in 1952.
That's right.
This was in 1969. I was very disappointed because I had heard he was in California. But this thought stayed with me. I want you to look into my eyes. And this ignited a thirst in me to meet a divine being. I had spent a lot of time drawing angelic beings. That was still one of my favorite things to draw. And I came to New Zealand in 1974. I had been drawn here by a series of unusual circumstances, and I decided to stay here. I had to find work of some kind. By this time I had graduated and was quite an accomplished fashion illustrator. And I was looking for work, and I happened to meet a representative from Collins Books named John Hall. John had just returned from Prashanti Nilayam, and he was electric with excitement. He had books, he had little bags of vibhuti, and he also wanted to be my agent to represent me with my artwork. So in the course of our conversations, he gave me a copy of Gita Vihini, and I still have that book. And that book riveted me. The picture of Swami on the cover, I thought, you're one of those guys like Yogananda. I want to look into your eyes. And of course I was delighted to find out that he was still alive, very much alive. This rep, Mr. Hall, had just come back from seeing him and told me the most extraordinary stories about a man who walked in the sand and who created vibhuti, sacred ash. I wanted some of that desperately. I remember it. And he had given away all his little bags. I was really disappointed about that. I think Swami knew that from the very beginning, that I was craving this vibhuti that he manifests. So I kept this book with me. I couldn't understand a lot of it, but I knew it was special. I didn't really have any access to any more books about Swami then. This was 1974. And it wasn't until I met Tom in 1978 that we both began a joint journey towards Swami. By that time, Goody's Books was in operation.
This is in Auckland?
This is in Auckland, New Zealand. Goody's spiritual bookshop. We were able to find books about Jack Hislop. Tom shared my interest in Bhagwan. We found books by Sam Sandweiss, and a few others were available by this time. By this time, we both were longing to go to India. And I thought, how are we going to get there? And I picked up one of these books from Goody's, and a bookmark fell out. Just fell out. It had Madeline Gilman's name on it, secretary of the Psi organization. I thought, I'll call up Madeline, and this crisp British voice answered the phone. I was a bit intimidated. She sounded like a very strict schoolmistress. I was a bit worried about this, you know, because I thought, oh, she's very posh. But she said, yes, we do have a group going. There are 2 seats left at Christmas time. It's such a big group. There are 3 groups going. And I said, we'll take those tickets.
So Lyn, just to stop you there, You're talking about groups from New Zealand
Yes.
going
A
to
group from
Prashanti
Auckland. A group from Auckland.
during Christmas time.
During Christmas time. And
Right.
this was 1989.
Mm-hmm.
We got there to the ashram, and Swami came straight over to me. And of course, I had been praying, I just want you to look into my eyes. I had the front row, and what did he do? He stood in front of me and looked into my eyes. And I was spellbound because I couldn't see his pupils. I was staring and staring into his eyes, you know, trying to plumb the depths of his eyes. And all I could see were golden brown orbs with light pouring out of them. And I became totally unaware of everyone all around me, and those beams met my eyes. And I didn't even need to speak to him. I was just transfixed because he had granted my wish. So mentally I said, if you are who you say you are, I will serve you the rest of my life. I had rehearsed this beforehand because I wanted to work for him. I don't know why. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I wanted to work for him. That was the beginning of a series of encounters in the darshan line where he began to show me what the work would be.
Very good, Lyn.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned about you making quite a lot of efforts with regards to spirituality. What made you think that there was going to be an opportunity to meet a divine being? Did you always know that there was a divine being and that you were going to come across that particular being?
I hoped that there was. I used to write in a little diary right up until the age of 16. I know you're out there. I want to find you. I didn't know who I was talking to. I knew it was a divine being of some kind. I was obsessed with them. I drew them. I prayed to them. I didn't even know who I was praying to. Most of the time it was Jesus, but I had other ideas. I was interested in the Virgin Mary, all the Catholic saints. I'd heard about Anandamoyi Ma. Women saints attracted me, and angelic beings, which I believed in passionately because I saw them as a child.
Now you have carried this out into your artwork,
Yes.
even in the recent past.
Yes.
Where does the images for these divine beings come to you from?
I just see them. And when I close my eyes, I can see them. And so I draw what I see. As an illustrator and an artist, your job is to support and extend reality in whatever dimension you happen to be exploring. And I've always been able to close my eyes and somehow see other worlds. I can't explain it. I did it as a child. I drew heavens, I drew hell. I was quite interested in finding the devil. I believed he lived down below somewhere in the ground. I dug big holes looking for him. Never found him, but I was quite sure he was down there. And I drew pictures of him too. I mean, you know, when you're little, you're obsessed with these things.
Yes.
I quite expected any day Jesus to come out of the clouds and check my account book as to whether I'd been naughty or nice.
Lyn, with regards to your association with Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, can you share with us some of his teachings that stand out? Because you are someone who has had first-hand experiences, but with experiences also come deep wisdom and insight.
Yes.
Is there anything that you would like to share when it comes to Swami's teachings?
Yes. One particular incident in a private interview with Swami in October of 1995 stands out. Swami said to me, any spiritual questions? And I raised my hand, and this was with the Ma Tibeti group, with Ma. And I said, Swami, when the human body is cut or scratched, usually it can heal itself. You know, it will begin to heal, a scab will form, and then the scab will fall off. The body can do that. But when a human heart is broken, sometimes it never heals. Swami, what is this thing that we call heartache, heartbreak? And he smiled. He was very pleased with the question. He said, very happy. He said, what you do not understand is that you have two hearts. He said, physical heart is on the left, and its duty is to pump the blood. He said, desires lodge in the muscle tissue of the physical heart and cause pain. I understood this, because when you want something badly and you can't have it, it hurts. Or if your expectations are dashed, or if you're disappointed, it hurts. And the hurt, when you lose someone through death or passing or a breakup, there is physical pain in the heart that you cannot get rid of. He said, to the left of the physical heart is the spiritual heart, and he pointed to the center of his chest. He said it is atomic in size. It is made of light. It is the only point of positive energy in the body. All else in the body, brain, blood, organs, skin, tissue, muscle, bone, is negative energy. He would speak like this. He would break up the word negative energy. Negative, negative, negative. And it will not last. Consciousness is God. Find me here. He said, when pain and suffering is afflicting you in the physical heart, shift your attention to the spiritual heart. Now, as an artist, I was electrified by this, and I wanted to know what it looked like, what color it was. Was it a flame? Was it a lotus? I know it's light. Was there a little man in there? And at that point, Swami looked upward like this, and he was moving his hand in a spiral motion. And I looked at him, and there was a huge halo of light beginning to form all around his head. It was enormous. It was white light, pure white electric light with a faint gold edge, very faint, and it was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there was a buzzing sound in my ear. It was just like an insect was in my ear. Out in the mandir, people were chanting the Veda Puspanjali, which before the Rudram, they chanted this particular Veda. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what the Sanskrit meant. Suddenly, the room vanished. I felt myself being ricocheted upwards like in a rocket ship, and I was nothing but blue space with Swami. And I was like an eye. I had no body. I was pure knowingness. I was completely at peace, and I had no desire to know. I had no desire to ask questions, because everything was here within me, within this eye with a heart, if you can imagine such a thing. And I was part of him. And I've never known peace like this before or since. And if I needed to know anything, I could dial it up. But I didn't need to know anything. There was no need. There was no desire. And I felt, well, I want to stay like this forever. But that buzzing is in my ear again, and suddenly I'm back in my body. I'm in the interview room. I can hear the buzzing has receded and become the chanting of the Veda Puspanjali. And Swami has turned to someone else. I can still see the halo, and he's saying, how are you? Where did you come from? And I'm just in complete bliss. And my chest, there's been some kind of explosion there, and I felt my whole body being washed with what I can only describe as golden oil. It was washing through me in waves. It was just like waves of electricity, waves of energy. And I stayed like that for some time. Later in that interview, he said to me, what are you doing? And I said, Swami, books, Swami. He said, very happy, very happy. I said, your books, Swami. He said, no, 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 our books. I'm very happy, you're a good girl. Sometimes your mind is like a monkey, sometimes it's in the marketplace, but I will fix. So I was very happy about that. And I was so happy that he said I was a good girl, because I thought I was a bad girl. I mean, I'd gotten up to a lot of mischief, previous. I was about 40 years old when this interview happened, and I'd had quite a life. And I wasn't very proud of a lot of it. And it was like my father saying, you're a good girl. Oh, he took away that angst I had of not being good. But Mata Betty told me later, she said, this means from now on, Lyn, you've got to be good. I have to give a lot of credit to Mata Betty for slapping me into shape, because before then I was a very undisciplined person, and I still am. But Ma had a way about her, and I'd love to speak more about Mata Betty, if we may.
Sure, Lyn. How do you think your life has changed since these wonderful incidents? Do you think that it is a more disciplined life, as you say?
I think in many ways it's a more free life. I wouldn't say it's disciplined because I consider myself extremely undisciplined, still, in many respects. However, I have the discipline where it counts. And that means every person who crosses my path is Swami. And I take a personal interest in that person's well-being. And is there any way I can help? Sometimes yes, I can. Sometimes no, I can't. But also it taught me that I'm not this body. I am not this girl who loves to shop and spend money. I am not this girl who is obsessed with her looks. And I am more than that. I am this light within, and everyone else is also that light. So of course I see before me a person, a being. They can be rich, ugly, fat, beautiful, a pain in the neck. They can be performing in front of me, yelling and screaming at me. I work in schools a lot as a visitor, so I have all kinds of interactions with children, and often the badly behaved ones, who are my specialty. Because I love them and I know they're not bad. Maybe their behaviors are bad, but they are good and they are that divine light within. So that has changed me totally in the way I view people, human beings, and animals and plants and rocks and weather phenomena and everything else. And it's made a huge impact on my artwork as well when I choose to draw and paint.
Just on the fact that you mentioned about Mata Betty, we are aware that you actually were one of the illustrators, actually the illustrator of one of the earlier books of Mata Betty, and you also had a very close association with her when these books were being written.
Yes.
Can you just share with us those fond memories?
Yeah.
With Mata Betty?
Yeah. I first met Ma at a regional conference in Rotorua, and I had been told, I had heard about her. I didn't know much about her, but I was interested to meet her. And I was introduced to her by Madeline Gilman and Prini Vimalachandra, as I recall. Ma was settling an argument between two of the groups that were at this conference. She was handling it very, very well. And I was very struck. When I first saw her, I had a wave of recognition. I felt, I know you. I just know you. She was down to earth. She was a real country woman, no nonsense. She reminded me a lot of the children's book author I was working with at the time, Dorothy Butler, very similar kind of lady, from the Bay of Plenty. And very nicely turned out. She was beautifully dressed in tweeds, and her hair was beautifully coiffed and makeup. And I just felt, I know you. I can't explain this. And when I met her, I introduced myself. I said, if you need any help, let me know. And she said, well, I'm writing some books. And I said, well, I am a book illustrator. I'm an editor, a proofreader, a designer, a writer myself. I'd be happy to help you. Oh, good, she said, I'm working on another book. Please come and help me with it. She said, because when I write, and Mata Betty's writing was so, so beautiful. It was like what I would call sort of like letter point, well, like the most beautiful handwriting Betty had. And she told me on lined paper at her kitchen table in her little retirement unit. She said, and it takes me ages. And I said, well, I can help you there. I can record you, and then you won't need to write all this. You know, we can just I can interview you, and then I will transcribe that. She said, oh, that would be wonderful. So I began going down to her little place in College Road in Edgecombe. It was a little retirement unit. It was all beautifully decorated in shades of peach and pink, and there were pictures of Swami. Everywhere Amrit, which is divine nectar, was coming out of these pictures, Vibhuti. I was very transfixed because I had never seen this happening before. And I thought, this must be a very special lady. And she had roses everywhere. She had real roses, she had artificial roses, she had dried roses. Her thing was roses all the way. And I thought, she's a pink lady. She's a pink rose pink lady. She loved roses. And I immediately felt an empathy with her because of her motherliness. She was very motherly towards me. And we began producing, the first book we produced was this one, Universal Revelations, where she had written some of it, and some of it she dictated to me. And I created the illustrations for it, and also did all the editing and the proofreading, and saw to it that it got for publication for this. She also loved to do little, just sweet little books of her thoughts and ideas and her prayers, and we did two of these little books. Letters from the Divine was one. Betty would have ideas about what to put on the books, like she really wanted Swami standing on New Zealand in this particular book. And on the next one, which was called Satya Sai Baba Universal Love, Betty said, I want Sai Baba standing on a globe on the earth. And I said, oh, Ma, that's going to look a bit funny, you know. And she said, no, I want that. So I dummied up Swami standing on the earth. I joined her trip to India on that occasion. We had layouts for this next book. And Swami, just like a publishing director, said, how is the book coming? And Mata Betty said, oh, Lyn has done these drawings. And Swami saw the one of Swami standing on the globe, and he said, no. He said, not natural. And Ma's face fell, because this was her, I couldn't help giving her a little sly look, like, see, I told you so. It was so funny, but you know what? She never gave up on that idea, and she had it done on her last book, yes, which I was not involved with. She got another person to do that image. And Swami was amazing in these interviews. When we came back again with the printed version of Universal Love, and Swami said, any photographs? He's flipping through the book and he says, any photographs? And Ma said, Swami, there is a picture of my husband in there. And Swami said, husband. Now her husband, Jim, who I never met, he had passed away before I got to meet Ma. So Ma always said, my husband was a greater devotee than me. And I thought, whoa, he must have been really something, you know, if he was greater than you. I mean, she to me was an epitome. But Swami said, husband, 10 years ago, he is with me. Because in that interview, that was the anniversary of Jim's passing. Well, Ma lit up like a Christmas tree. You know, that very day was his death, it was Jim's death anniversary. So Swami said, where is this photo of husband? Husband is with God. And Ma found the picture, and it was a picture of Jim with one of their prize-winning guide dogs. Ma and her husband bred the first guide dogs for the blind in New Zealand. And the photo was of Jim with Blue, with all of the dog's trophies. And Swami's going, husband is with God, husband is with God. And he goes, oh, husband is with dog. And he said, see, D-O-G, G-O-D, all one. And Ma was going through the roof with happiness. And I was happy too, because I had chosen that photo. I said, well, we've got to have that photo of Jim with the dog, because Swami likes dogs, you know. And so we had many wonderful incidents like this, where Swami was the publishing director, and he was correcting and changing things in the book, and he would always sign the title page. I would do a proper presentation, and Swami would always sign it with love and blessings, Sri Satya Sai. And we would always include that on the dedication page. He would always do that, which was so sweet, and it would make Ma so happy. I kept feeling that she was on a roll with these books, and I said, after this interview where Swami spoke to me about the heart, I said, Ma, we've got to do another book about the universal heart. And by that time, she said, oh, I don't know if I can do another book. It's such a huge, expensive energy for me, and I don't know if I can. I said, Ma, You know, there was so much in that interview, not just what he said to me, but what he said to you about the heart.
Because by this time she would have been in her 70s,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, this is 1997 we're
Right.
coming up to. So she said, yes, I think we can write another book. And this Universal Heart was the culmination of that. I did not go along on the next trip, but she took this to Swami, and he was so happy with this book. Because this book really explores the nature of the spiritual heart, which is my bailiwick. This is, if I ever have to speak about Swami, I feel this is what I will speak about, because he talked to me about it. And just recently, Radio Sci published a series I've written called Spiritual Maturity, which is all about the spiritual heart. I've been volunteering for Radio Sci since 2010. But it's taken this long to get an article or a series together, and it's about the spiritual heart. There's something about the spiritual heart, because it was Ma's favorite topic, the heart. She said, you know, all paths lead to the heart. And of course, roses were a great symbol for Ma of divine love. She would use the rose as a symbol for meditation. She had a rose meditation. She loved roses. She said to me once, Lyn, she said, do you know that the rose, the form of the rose, is a blueprint for the design of the universe? That is constantly unfolding in the form of a rose. I said, no, Ma, I didn't know that, but I can believe it. And one day she said to me, Lyn, I was meditating on a tree, and all of a sudden the tree disappeared, and I could see a transparent tree with a thin red line running up it. This was in winter time. She said, I was meditating on what looked like a dead tree. She said, I know that I saw the spiritual form of that tree. It was luminous, and it was radiating with vibrations of life, even though the tree on the outside was dead. Ma had a great empathy with plants and growing things. And we often, in her books, I would always ask her about plants and what lessons could we learn from plants. She loved anything that looked like it was dead, but when it was put in water, it would come to life. For example, the Rose of Jericho plant. It's all dried up when you see it, but you put it in a bowl of water and it unfolds. Now, these were very powerful symbols for Mata Betty. Also, the spiritual heart. She returned to this theme again and again. Ma was a Catholic. She was a very devoted Catholic. And so the spiritual heart, the compassionate heart of Jesus and of the Virgin Mary were of great importance to Ma. And I also adopted that stance. This is the secret. This is the key to understanding who you are and how am I God. The answers are all within. The answers are within. You can go and follow. Swami said the heart is the greatest teacher and the greatest preceptor. There is no need to follow teachers on the outside. The heart is the best teacher. And he did say another thing. He said, all the countries of the world are room, the universal heart, and we speak about this in this book. This book, to me, was the best thing, to have been part of this with Mata Betty and Swami, because he loved this book. Above all, he carried it around with him and he took it back to his room. So we know that he loved it very much. And I'm still working on that theme.
How wonderful then for you to be part of a production that has gone on to inspire many, many devotees, and it will continue to do so, because I believe these books are now available in Prashanthi Nilayam
Yes.
at the Satya Sai Books and Publication Trust.
Yes, they are.
Which is very good. With regards to your various trips to India to be with Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba in his physical presence, I consider these to be very special, especially traveling all the way from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would you consider them to be pilgrimages?
Certainly pilgrimages, but also going home. He said to me in one interview, he said, this is your home. Prashanthi Nilayam is your home and you are always welcome. And home has been a bit of a story for me, because I've moved 44 times, and just when I settle into a place I love and want to stay, I have to move again. I've never owned a home or a property, and so home, Swami said, every home you have on this earth is only a 5-star hotel, so don't get attached. And properties are not proper ties. So maybe that's the reason I've never owned property in this lifetime, because I'm aware that wherever I hang my hat is my home. I'm at home anywhere. I can make myself at home anywhere, but Prashanti is my home. And of course he said, Prashanti Nilayam is in your heart. He told me that. So I have 2 homes.
Now, with regards to going home, and you mentioned about the fact that you have gone with Mata Betty and had interviews as well. What is the kind of lessons that you would like to share when people are going on these pilgrimages, especially for people who may not be used to being on a pilgrimage?
Yes.
Because it's very different to buy a ticket and just go on a trip. But there is an inner search that goes on, and there's also the inner realizations that you have when you have a pilgrimage.
Yes.
And there are many people who go on pilgrimages. So can you basically tell us what you have done when you have been on these trips with Mata Betty and even on your own?
Well, on my first trip in 1989, I was very excited, because I know I was going to see a divine being. By that time, I had accepted Swami as a divine being, although I'd never met him in person. I was also looking forward to doing a lot of Christmas shopping. And so I had a twofold, purpose for going. I was all excited about India and also for going to the ashram. We had been given a set of rules, but they were not strictly enforced with this particular group, and it took me some time until I met Mata Betty to understand that you either go to India as a tourist to do tiki tours and do all the, Taj Mahal and Indian food and, cute jewelry and clothes, and going on a pilgrimage is something quite different. Madeline Gilman used to print up a little sheet that said "The Journey to the Feet," and this intrigued me. On I think my second or third trip, Madeline gave me a little piece of paper that said "Journey to the Feet," and she said, "Give this to all the members of your group," because we were taking a group. We began taking groups for Madeline from New Zealand. And I thought, "Journey to the Feet, I don't really understand this thing about the feet." And in fact, as a Westerner, I was not particularly excited about the idea of Padnamaskar. I saw lots of Western people touching Swami's feet, and I thought, oh, they're just trying to be Indians. They're trying to, show everyone that they're cool, and I'm not doing it. I remember having this terrible thought, at the time, I'm not doing it. Well, Swami started coming over to me and standing right in front of me, sticking his feet in front of me like this, and I was going, nope, not going to do it. Everyone else is jumping and being very out of control. And I thought, I'm not doing it. Now, I don't know why had this strange thought in my head, because I've got this piece of paper, Journey to the Feet. Okay, here I am at the feet. He's sticking his feet right in front of me. Now what? I didn't know anything about Padnamaskar. I'm a Western chick, And then a very strange thing happened after one of these darshans. This is while we're still sitting outside. There wasn't Kulwant Hall. And Swami had been standing there with his feet in front of me. And he'd be swaying back and forth like this, like, well, I'm waiting. And I thought, what are you doing that for? I didn't know. And I was heading back to my room, and a nurse that I knew, I had made friends with this lovely Australian nurse who worked in Swami's hospital. She said, Lyn, I've been looking for you. I've got a book I think you might like. I said, oh, great, I love books. And it was a little paperback with a kingfisher on the front, one of my favorite birds. And it said, The Full Meaning and Explanation of the Feet, and Padnamaskar. And I went, oh, yeah. and in my room, we had been allotted a room in the roundhouse. We'd come into the room, and there was a great big picture of Swami's feet with in the Paducah sandals with lotuses all around it, and I had decided I'm going to sleep under that picture. I don't know what it means, but it's, you know, this foot thing is starting to eat at me. I should be more attracted to the feet, so what's going on? And I read this book and I got a full understanding of what Padnamaskar means. I'm like, oh my God, Swami's been giving me all these opportunities for Padnamaskar, and I've been being Miss Smarty Pants. I'm not going to touch him. And then Swami calls us for an interview, and I'm sitting right at his feet. And there's a, we had doctors in our group, and Swami said, Mata Betty said, Swami, the doctors are leaving. And Swami said, very good, private interview. And he got up and he walked into the private room with the three doctors. We had Shanti and Selva Kumar and Mohan from Auckland Hospital. And at that time, there was a guy in our interview, Kamlesh Tapu, and he didn't believe Swami was divine, but he had bought a pair of padukas and he'd shoved them down his pants. And he rushed over to Swami's chair and put these two silver padukas right on Swami's footstool, which was a big pink lotus made out of satin. It was this big flowery thing. Someone had made it. And Swami came back in, and I'm sitting right there, and here's these padukas, and Swami goes, oh, and he sticks his feet in these padukas, and he starts wiggling his toes. And it's the photograph in my room. It's exactly the same, and I'm going, I still didn't touch him. I still didn't get it. And it took me one more interview. By this time, I was thirsting for Padnamaskar. And of course, he hadn't come near me, you know, since then. I was hungry for Padnamaskar. And I was afraid to ask for it. And at the last minute, Barry Vautier stood up and said, Swami, can we have Padnamaskar? And Swami pulled his little gown aside, and he said, help yourself. And we all dived for it. I mean, we let Ma go first, and I dived for those feet. And I felt a jolt of energy come from his feet into my forehead, and I was all over them like a rash. It was the only time I've ever had Padnamaskar, but it was memorable. So that's what I learned from my journeys. The feet matter. And there's a lot to be said about worshiping the divine feet. And that's a whole separate interview.
Would that actually mean that you have got the ability to surrender yourself at the divine feet, so much so that it is the will of God that establishes your life?
Yes.
As opposed to your own
Yes.
free will and you being the doer.
Yes, I began to explore this idea of who am I? And my conclusion is I'm not the doer. He does everything through me, through divine will. I am an instrument only. I can be anything he likes. I'm happy to be his doormat, his sweeper, his pen, his brush. And if I am to be a jewel in his crown, let it never go to my head. Let me only say Sairam, Sairam, Sairam.
Very good, Lyn. Thank you for sharing these wonderful insights from your trips. One last question that we have got is to do with how you would describe Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba if I were to ask you and I do not know anything about him.
I get asked this question by a lot of people because for some reason people come here, they want to know about Swami. Quite often they're overseas people who are volunteering here on the property, or I get asked quite randomly by people who know I have some association, and particularly for people who are not of Indian origin or who already are devout Christians or Buddhists or whatever. Muslims even, Muslim people have asked me about Swami, and I say, he is whatever you want him to be. You as a Muslim worship a formless form of God. Swami is also a formless form. Now they have trouble with that. But at that stage I am only sharing my own experience. I have, since his Mahasamadhi, I have experienced him totally in many mysterious forms. For example, Vibhuti, forming on photographs here, forming on a robe that I keep here, that, you know, he wore this robe. His footprints came next to my drawing table when I was working on a program for Shanti Niwas, which rescues abused Indian elders. It's not a Psi program, but he seemed to have been standing looking at the artwork I was preparing. And this happened on the 24th of April, 2014, which is the anniversary of his passing, and the footprints were very clear in Vibhuti by my drawing board. So I am always looking for him in mysterious forms. He had said before he passed away that he would come in many mysterious forms. And I believe that he is everywhere. There is no atom that he does not inhabit. He is the light in the electron. This was told to me by Professor Venkatraman. He is the light in the electron. And if you think of that, he is light, he is love. There is no place he is not. Atoms are everywhere. Lights and electrons are everywhere. The cosmos is full of light. He is light. He is love. When I see a child beaming at me, I see Swami. When I see a piece of orange fluff on the floor, I see Swami. If I see an orange flower, I see Swami. If I see a rose, I see Swami. If I see you, I see Swami. I see that first. Everything else is secondary. And then comes the question, what do you need? How can I help? You know, would you like some chocolate? Would you like an ice cream? Do you need any help with your book? Shall I draw something for you? You know, make people happy. Make people happy. That, if I had to sum everything up, it's be happy and make other people happy. That makes Swami happy.
Thank you, Lyn. Jai Sai Ram.
Sarah.